Hello, BookTube, and welcome to BookTrek 2021. This is an ongoing 5-month mission I'm embarked on with a bunch of other intrepid booktubers where we are reading Star Trek fiction, show iteration by show iteration. So we started in August with the original series. That was a lot of fun. Rereading some of those old books was a lot of fun. Then we went to TNG, The Next Generation, and that was a lot of fun and also tremendously eye-opening. I learned a lot about Star Trek, about a Star Trek franchise I never really liked before then. That was a thrilling feeling. It involved a little bit of eating crow, but but even crow can taste good if you're getting something out of the deal. And now we're moving on to the third Star Trek iteration if we're leaving out the animated series. The animated series was the original show. If we leave that out, then we get to Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which I mentioned in an earlier video, departs from the Star Trek formula in a great number of ways. We do not have a roving vessel, a starship, going on weekly Planet of the Week adventures. We don't have anything like that. This is set on a space station that orbits the planet Bajor, and that was occupied by a savage, militaristic, non-human race named the Cardassians, who called it Terok Nor. In tense neutral zone negotiations, they yielded it to the Federation, who renamed it Deep Space Nine, and put in its command Captain Benjamin Sisko, a black man who hates Jean-Luc Picard because his wife was killed by Jean-Luc Picard when Jean-Luc Picard was an emissary of the Borg. So there's not only is it a stationary area, and not only are there lots of concerns that don't have anything to do with Starfleet, but there's also none of the happy, sunny goodwill that has characterized Star Trek up until this show. The captain of the previous Star Trek iteration, ongoing Star Trek: The Next Generation, and the commander, not a captain, commander Benjamin Sisko, don't like each other. That's amazing. Benjamin Sisko takes over Deep Space Nine and realizes it's not a Starfleet installation, except in name only. It's got a promenade where visitors from all over come to do business or do pleasure. It's got a Bajoran first officer and a Bajoran security staff. It's got a shape changer as the head of security. It's a wide mixture of people. And the reason why there are so many visitors on the promenade is because Bajor is orbited by a gigantic stable wormhole, an opening, a hole in space that leads directly to a different quadrant of the galaxy, the Gamma Quadrant. Ships come and go through the wormhole all the time. And the Bajorans, it's been there so long that the Bajorans have worked up a religion around it. They believe that prophets live in the wormhole and guide their destinies, and they're an intensely religious people. And they're half right. Aliens do live in the wormhole. Intelligent aliens live inside this spatial disturbance. None of the details of that are really gone into, but among the Bajorans' religious beliefs is that the prophets will have an emissary, a human emissary, and that emissary is Benjamin Sisko. They think our commander, the commander of our Deep Space Nine, is a religious figure, a messiah figure. And they have a whole bunch of priests and priestesses who are devoted to studying this sort of thing. Benjamin Sisko goes to the station with his young son, Jake, who he has to raise alone now. And it's never made clear to me, to my satisfaction, why there are any civilians on board Deep Space Nine. Transporters exist in the 24th century. Transporters exist. So why wouldn't your family and everybody else's family live down on the planet, not on a vulnerable space station in orbit around the planet that could be taken out by a Klingon armada on Monday, or a Romulan armada on Wednesday, or a Cardassian armada on Friday? I don't know why your family would be on the station, but I guess they are. And Jake Sisko grows up on Deep Space Nine. And right from the first series, right from the first season, I thought, boy, oh boy, that is a story. And I kept expecting, as Deep Space Nine went on, season after season, that the writers would either tell that story or get rid of Jake Sisko, move him. Maybe the actor would grow up and decide, I don't want to be on the show anymore. I want to leave in season 3 or season 5, those kinds of Star Trek decisions that actors always regret. Go on to some other show or whatever. And that the writers would write him out, would say he'd gone off to visit relatives in New Orleans or wherever, and he wasn't on the show anymore. But no, instead, Jake Sisko stays on Deep Space Nine and grows up there. And he's friends with everybody. And has no enemies on Deep Space Nine. No one who hates his father hates him. And as the seasons go on, he starts to develop again to be a writer. So by the time Deep Space Nine was entering its last season, I was thinking, boy, the perfect Deep Space Nine novel is just waiting to be written. It's Jake Sisko writing the story of his growing up on Deep Space Nine amidst Bajorans and a million aliens and revered Starfleet figures and a Klingon and a Trill and a shapeshifter. And instead, no one's written that novel. As far as I know, no one's ever done that. No one's written the novel that Jake Sisko would write about growing up on Deep Space Nine, despite the fact that Deep Space Nine was absolutely pivotal in winning a gigantic war. And everyone knows that Jake Sisko was the son of the captain who won that war. Instead, we get bits and pieces. Jake Sisko shows up in various novels, including in the novel that I read today, which I probably shouldn't have, considering that I knew already that it wasn't going to be the novel that I've always wanted somebody to write. This is called Rising Sun by S.D. Perry. That female figure on the cover is Kaiopaka, who is one of the Bajoran priestesses, and that is Jake Sisko, looking sleepy. Star Trek covers, notoriously ugly. When they do this, when they Photoshop the faces, the actual faces of the actual cast, which they do all the time, all that results is ugly covers. Whereas every once in a while, they'll do a really nice cover that is just a painting that someone has done of a ship or a space station or a planet or something like that. Instead, we get this nonsense. And in this book, I don't want to give spoilers to Deep Space Nine, but put vaguely, Captain Benjamin, so he's captain by the end of the series, seems to die at the end of the episode. At the end of Deep Space Nine, he seems to die. He seems to sacrifice his life in order to save the entire quadrant from a superpowered madman. We'll get to that as the month goes on. But this book opens, if you make it out on the cover, the 10th anniversary. So this was the pocketbooks relaunching Deep Space Nine novels to continue the story after the end of the show, which I would ordinarily applaud. Except that Deep Space Nine really does end. A lot of others don't. I mean, when Star Trek The Next Generation has its final episode, All Good Things, the Enterprise is not being taken out of commission. It's still going on. But Deep Space Nine, it really does seem to wrap up. The cast almost entirely disperses. And that, their chemistry, I have to think, was a central part of the show. This is, as far as I can tell, the launching volume in a series of after TV Deep Space Nine novels. And it starts with Jake Sisko finding a Bajoran religious artifact that hints that maybe his father is still alive. Now, you have to figure that would be true. This is an ambiguous ending. It's an ambiguous disappearance at the end of Deep Space Nine. Science fiction, just in general, loves ambiguous disappearances, so it's entirely possible for Benjamin Sisko to return. But it's also entirely believable that Jake Sisko would want to know what happened to his father. In the context of the actual final episode, there's no way that he would know anything at all. He wouldn't know even a tenth what we, the viewer, knows, because there are no survivors. There are no witnesses. There's no one left to say what happened in a particular cave at a particular moment. So it's believable that Jake Sisko would have a ton of questions. And maybe it's believable that he would think that Bajoran religious artifacts might be able to point him in the right direction. We don't really know how much Bajoran religion Jake Sisko believes. He was raised right around it, and he was raised by one of its figures, but we don't really know. The show is not really clear on that. So I guess I kind of had hopes that this would be the launch off to something epic, an epic echo of the Odyssey, where Telemachus goes looking for his father. But it wasn't that. It was bad. This was really, really, really bad. There were hardly any characters that I cared about. The book is full, from stem to stern, of characters that I think S.D. Perry made up, and did not bother to flesh out. So they are really, when they're not irritating, they're really boring. And Jake Sisko in the book doesn't read at all like the character from the show, even the character from the show a few years older. And the action goes nowhere, and there's a big swerve about 2/3 of the way in to bring us Kaiopaka and to get another plot line on board. Always a bad idea. All of your major plot lines should be there by the 3rd or 4th chapter. It was a struggle to finish, and it made me start to wonder. I'm not thinking this. I'm not actually thinking this. But a part of me is starting to wonder if my reading of Deep Space Nine is cursed. I'm going to have to hope that's not true. I don't want to go slogging through pieces of crap all month long. I'd never read any of the post-show Deep Space Nine novels. But I thought I remembered liking some of the novels that came out while the show was on the air. Maybe I'll go to one of those tonight. I did not like this at all. I cannot recommend it at all. And that's not just because it doesn't do what I want it to do. It's also because I don't think it does what it wants to do. I can still dream about someone being given permission or having the desire to write a big Jake Sisko novel. Or not a novel about that is his nonfiction recollection, his autobiography of growing up on Deep Space Nine. I think that would make a terrific book. Imagine incorporating all of his experiences as we see them in the show. He grows up into a young man on the show and experiences a bit of war, all while being a writer, a self-professed writer. Surely he would be the first character to recognize that this is the mother of all stories. But that wasn't the reason that I didn't like this book. It wasn't because it wasn't my book. It was because it was not good. So I'm going to move on. Undaunted. Tonight I will pick another Deep Space Nine novel and I will hope for the best. I am with Deep Space Nine, as with all other books on BookTrek, I am avoiding Star Trek authors I know I like. I'm avoiding there are a handful of Deep Space Nine novels that I've already read. I'm avoiding those because I want to experience new worlds and new civilizations. So I don't know. Maybe after 15 days of this, my resolve will be completely broken and I'll just go running back to the few authors I know. But tonight I'm going to try something new, something I've never tried before. I don't know that it'll be another book in this series. It'll probably be something different. And I'll report back on whether or not there is a curse on Deep Space Nine. Thank you, BookTube.